Hi, guys, and welcome back to Manch Talk. I am your host, Carla Garrick, and I'm thrilled that I will have a guest that I will introduce in a hot second. But first of all, I just wanted to update you guys on a couple of things happening up at the State House, and then remind folks, especially if you're watching live on Facebook right now, thank you. There is a AFP, that is the Americans for Prosperity event tonight, Axe the Tax. That will be taking place at the Rugged Axe here in Manchester, over near where the DMV is, on South Willow. That event is from 6 to 8 p.m. If you can, go to their website and RSVP. That should be pretty fun. We will be throwing some sharp objects, which never hurts. Then the other thing I wanted to report on is this inspection bill that we have been following. So yesterday there was a huge hearing up at the State House. In fact, the union leader headline today was "State Auto Industry Lobby to Keep Inspections." So when you hear that word lobby, what should you be thinking? Someone is using the government to get theirs and they're making it hard for you. So basically, there were hundreds of people at the State House, and it was basically just the lobbyists who got to testify. That lobbyist said the following, and I quote, "The fact that we're greedy makes us good." Now, that's the kind of statement that even Ayn Rand might raise an eyebrow towards. But there will be another hearing next week, so please mark your calendars. April 8th, 10 a.m., room 100 at the State House. Apparently, they are actually going to give the constituents a chance to testify on the bill as well, and not just let the people who get rich from the system perpetuate the system. So make sure you come to that, or be sure to send in your remarks. Now I get to introduce one of my favorite New Hampshire activists, Miss Laurie Ortolano from Nashua. Laurie has been on the show here with me on Manch Talk before, but she has a wild story. I think you might have won the award now for the most right-to-know requests or cases in the history of New Hampshire. But I asked the Grok to just do a brief little summary, and yes. I thought that's kind of sweet. Where they talk about how you are a prominent open government advocate known for your persistent efforts to hold the city of Nashua accountable through various and numerous legal battles. Your advocacy started with a personal dispute over a significant property tax assessment increase back in 2014. Is that the right number?
It's weird. It really kicked off in 18.
Oh, okay.
14, we lived with it.
Okay.
18, we addressed it.
See, now I'm so happy that we are doing that, because, it's good to audit the AI as well, since, it's now starting to tell us things, and we're
yes.
sort of, seeding part of our brain to something else.
Right.
So that 2014 surprised me, so that's good that it sounds like we're more on the same page. But back then, that sparked a years-long campaign to expose irregularities in the city's assessing department and demand transparency under New Hampshire's right-to-know laws. Ortolano's tenacity has led to multiple lawsuits against the city, its officials, and employees, often resulting in court rulings in her favor, including orders for the city to release records, pay her legal fees, and train staff on transparency laws. Her work has earned her recognition, such as the 2023 Naki Loeb School First Amendment Award, and has also drawn some contention for your actions over the time, including a trespassing incident, which we don't have to get into today, but we've all been there. So I reached out to you because, of course, I just love seeing you, and I love talking to you.
You called me.
And, getting an update. But honestly, it was because I saw this article in yesterday's Union Leader, and the headline is, "Judge Dismisses Right-to-Know Complaints Against Officials." And I wanted to kind of just get your take on where we are, like what happened with this one, and then we'll go from there.
Well, this was a case that involved seeking records on the money paid to an outside legal firm to defend the city in a right-to-know case against me.
Okay.
So when I filed the case 2 years ago on the downtown barriers in the Nashua Performing Arts Center, it was just me as a pro se litigant, and the city paid or hired or put on 5 attorneys to go against me. And 2 of these attorneys were top firms, McLean Middleton and Upton Hatfield.
Oh, wow.
And they were paid to date over maybe $650,000 to fight me in that case.
Wow.
And I had no idea the city had paid that much money for that case. It was, what happened is my city leaders, the city attorney, Celia Leonard, and a director held a special Board of Aldermen meeting where no public comment was allowed. And they put up a table of all the damage Laurie Ortolano has done to the city and how taxpayers should really, really be angry with her. And as they put the table up, this one lawsuit was the leading cost. And at that point in March of last year was up to $400,000 in legal expenses. It's expanded to $600,000 because we had another trial date to go through. I was stunned. I was stunned that the city was paying that much money. So I sought to get those bills. And this lawsuit was about how the city produced those bills and how they responded to me. And a great part of that dispute, that lawsuit, was about delay of records. Eventually I got the records, but the time and the failure to give me the records in the simplest form and the lowest cost. Now, I'm really sensitive to cost because not only does the city publicize me in public meetings with my name right on the screen, and they make very bold claims about the millions I have cost the city. And if that's...
Well, can I interrupt you there just to ask, is it fair to say that, yes, it's true that you're being persistent, but you're being persistent, one, because you are actually trying to follow the money, which is something
Yes.
that is part of our 91A, right? The reason we have open government is so that we are supposed to have this right to open government is so that we can tell what they're doing, how they're spending our money, so that we can hold them accountable. And then in your case, you keep winning something and then they keep appealing.
Right.
So if you keep appealing when someone else is the winning side, because you as the state or the city have unlimited resources,
They do.
right?
They do.
So on the one hand, they keep running up the fees, right?
Right.
Because but then on the other hand, they keep going, look at this lady running up the fees.
I know.
Is that fair?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
it's totally what is happening. And so that petition was filed really looking at how the right to knows were being processed. And I'm starting to wonder whether I have a taxpayer standing issue to address the cost of this process, because they're using me as an example to say we're spending $250,000 a year. Well, when I ask you to give me the bills, the push button report on all the payments made to McLean Middleton, and they come back with 200 pages of redacted bills, which takes a lot of time.
Right.
I said, just run the push button report, and they would not do it.
What is a push button report?
The software allows you to take a
automatically-
vendor and automatically generate a report that lists every payment to that vendor fully for the last 2 years, which covered my whole right to know case. It's just a 1 or 2 page report, and it would give me the summation of all that was paid.
Wow.
How simple, right? It's built into the software. I wanted the simplest method to get my records. I wanted them not to take the longest amount of time and do the redacting, because they have publicly stated the redacting is costing millions. So I said, you can redact, but if you can do the push button report, give the report. And then they generated this report for the other attorney that was hired, Upton Hatfield. They gave me a report.
Okay.
But they wouldn't do it for McLean Middleton. And I could not understand why. They won't communicate with me. They won't allow me to go into the city hall to talk to anyone. They've locked them all down. Any office I go to, most of them will say, legal has told us we can't communicate with you.
Wow.
So I can't have a conversation. And they say it's because of litigation. But so much of what I'm asking for is not part of litigation. It becomes litigation because of how they handle it.
So how is Laurie going through this whole experience? What has it been from like an emotional perspective?
It's been really difficult. First of all, I feel really badly for my husband. I do.
I think
He's
that's
such an
fair.
honorable man, and You know, at one point I asked him to divorce me. Just leave me. No. I mean, it was so painful that I didn't want him to have to be married to me. I really didn't. It was very emotional. And but he is so grounded in faith, and he's such a good business leader. He's grown a very successful corporation. And so over a 25-year period, you know, so, and it's all over the country and in international. So he's done fine, and he understands people. He had no concept of civil litigation. Mm-hmm. He had no concept of it, and he cannot believe how screwed up it is, how messed up it is. He feels there's a really big fundamental problem in this state. So
let's talk about that a little bit, right? So we have both had experiences in the court here in New Hampshire with varying degrees of success, and then also had experiences in the federal court. But one of the things that I've noticed is we've created this incredible bureaucracy, right? Like
yes.
There's so many laws about so many things, down
right.
to the minutia where it has to be driving people insane.
Yes.
But what we haven't done is scale up our courts. Like if we have written, let's say, probably tens of thousands of new regulations,
right.
laws, red
right.
tape, and all of that. But it's not like, you know, they're building a new courthouse every week and hiring 100 new judges.
Right.
So I think we're in this really sort of, would you call it pre-collapse, or perhaps even a slow collapse in the judicial system?
I think it's a slow collapse. I really do. I see it as the most dishonorable institution in this state. And part of it is the processes they go through, the structure of the business, the oversight of it, the bureaucracy of it. I mean, you know, when I got into my right to know cases, I learned after 2 years that there is an administrative order called 2013-08 that Justice Nadeau signed, and it was to allow certain cases to be expedited. They wouldn't have to go through 6 of the rules for trials, like discovery, answers, pretrial conference, depositions. Oh, there was a whole list. And there was maybe 40 different kinds of cases that were exempt. But the courts don't follow that rule. So my right to know cases never got put in that. Even the small ones never got put into, hey, let's have her go in, they don't need answers. Every case I filed came back with summons from the court for answers. They were often dated wrong. The summons was being delivered after the answers were due. I mean, they were totally screwed up. And I was really frustrated. I tried to work with the head of the administrative office of the courts. She was terrible. She was totally non-responsive. And I tried to point out to the clerks in court that these summons make no sense, you know. And what it allowed the city to do every time is file motions to continue. So my expedited petition was always getting knocked around for 2 or 3 months just trying to figure out how to get the paperwork out. And the clerks in the court were, you know, hey, we don't care about the rule. Nobody's told us we have to follow it, so we're not following it.
Right.
So it was so
haphazard almost.
Yeah, and so I really feel like hundreds of millions of dollars have probably been wasted on these judges are supposed to review the cases to determine if they can go the quick route or need to be processed as a full trial. And what I found is nobody's looking at the cases.
I believe you.
That nobody, they're just going and stamping them all into trial. Well, you know what it does? It brings lawyers to the trough to feed. These things become very expensive.
Yes.
And for the plaintiff and defendants, we're all just doling out money to go through a process we don't have to go through. And that, I think, is really an abusive process.
Yes, and of course, I mean, you can say there should be, you know, typically with legal fees, not so much if you're pro se, right, because your time becomes something different. But for a lawyer, if you have 2 sides and both parties have sort of commiserative lawyers, you know, then if we know that the city of Nashua is spending $600,000 just on this one thing, then it's really, that is kind of the costs to you as the person trying to get this information. And at some stage you have to ask yourself, and maybe you have an answer for this, is it like, what is going on? Is it a personal vendetta at this stage? Or do you think something is so rotten that they're willing to spend all this money to try and hide something?
I think there's something, so it's a both. There is a personal vendetta because I was digging into really significant financial things that they had a lot to hide on. The Art Center in Nashua was built with federal money through a New Markets Tax Credit program that was not obtained properly. And everywhere, the way they set up 3 shell corporations and took our public money and fed it into these shell corporations, the final corporation ended up being incorporated as a private company who took all the public money, and they did not disclose to the public that they were setting up the 3rd private company. They disclosed it 2 weeks before they closed and never made clear to the board or public that this was a private corporation that would handle public money. And there is a constitutional issue there in that they should not have it. And the problem is, what do you do about it? I can't afford. Go and get a lawyer and go into court to challenge the constitutionality of this art center is going to cost you $300,000.
Right.
I mean, they just spent $650 on a right to know lawsuit, and if I had had an attorney, I think it would have cost me $300,000 to go deal with that art center case and the downtown barriers. That was $1 million right to know lawsuit. Who's going to pay that?
So. I mean, I don't want to derail us here, but I'm just so curious. So if we look at the Art Center thing, right, and we kind of put on our follow the money investigative reporter hats, right, then is someone getting, so like with the USDA stuff that's coming out, right? You realize, a lot of money is being funneled into nonprofits. You have a CEO of a nonprofit or an executive director who is somehow making a $2 million salary annually, and you're like, well, does that really make sense? Or is this like soft money laundering? What's going on? Now, also, of course, sometimes it's just like, we're creating these corporate vehicles. We don't really know what we're doing. But a lot of times with federal grants, in my experience here in Manchester as well, you see the money come in and suddenly they come up with projects because they're trying to spend the money, but suddenly you're hiring your favorite buddy's construction firm to do the paving, and suddenly you're hiring this law firm to do the court cases.
Yes.
Is that what's happening?
Well, there definitely is a lot of money being funneled to the same contractors and the same team. There's no question about that. With this art center, this was a very unique program, and the argument that I developed an understanding with another lady that they really misapplied the money.
Okay.
And they didn't disclose. And they claimed they set up 2 nonprofits and made it sound like they were companies owned by the city. And then they dissociated, and when they held meetings for those corporations, they never properly public noticed them. I was trying to find the meetings.
Right.
Part of my lawsuit was they wouldn't tell me where the meetings were. And
because it's public money going to a private corporation.
Ultimately, it moved from the nonprofits that were public nonprofits into the private. But they held these meetings, and they didn't notice them properly. You couldn't find the meetings. And then when I challenged them in this lawsuit, they took a position to say, hey, those nonprofits, they're not owned by the city. We have nothing to do with them. But when I did the research, they had the same EIN number, employer identification number, as the city. The city files the tax returns for them. The city approves the board of directors for the corporations. The city approves the bylaws. The city funds the corporations with our tax money. They have no other revenue source but city tax money. Wow. The list of it was like 6 deep. Right. And the city was paying, in that lawsuit, the legal representation for it because it had no money to represent itself.
Oh, wow.
The taxpayers paid it. So how do you argue? It's not a city entity. And they wrote bylaws. And then they wrote the bylaws for these corporations outside of 91A. They were formed under a state statute that they should have abided to 91A, but they wrote the bylaws and omitted all the 91A stuff.
Wow.
So, there was, and when we discovered it, it caused a lot of problems with the mayor. I think they knew there was a lot of things not right. The judge couldn't stand the case because it opened up a fraud claim. And here's what I've discovered. when you bring a right to know case, and right to know helps you ferret out corruption.
Yes,
That's what it
that's
does.
the point of it,
That's the
folks.
point of it. Well, once you hit that corrupt point and you tell a judge, here's where the fraud comes in, they head for the hills.
Yes.
They will not hear that. You do not say the word fraud or crime in their court. Suddenly, I became very ostracized when I said that, and I really didn't understand why. And when I brought it up in a hearing, my judge disappeared for 3 months on all rulings. He just went radio silent, and it was very strange to me.
Well, it's also, as they say, it's an old boys club, and you ain't in it,
God.
right?
I'm not in
there is
it.
this, me
I'm
either,
definitely-
Laurie, if it makes you feel better.
I'm not in it at all.
But I did say we got our 10-minute warning, so I want to make sure we do get to talk to whatever's in the front of your mind or that you feel like people should understand about where you are now.
Okay, so where I am is I've got some pending lawsuits. I just got a Supreme Court order today. Today.
Breaking news right here on Manch Talk.
Right. That was all about my assessing records I tried to get in 2019. Now, you should feel my discouragement in recognizing
that is 6
that
years,
records
guys,
that I wanted in 2019 are now coming back with an order, really because my judge mismanaged my case terribly. And the order came back that the judge has been ordered to do an in-camera review of these police interviews and audio files done on personnel for an assessing office investigation, that an in-camera should be done. And while he had awarded me attorney's fees, which I was really hoping to get some fees back, my first right to know case I did with an attorney cost me $250,000. And I said, I'm never doing that again, which is why I went pro se. And I wouldn't recommend anyone get an attorney. But when you go in on your own, it's pretty brutal. Right now, the state is so hostile, I feel, the agencies and municipalities, that for citizens to go in and get records, it's extremely damaging and potentially dangerous. It really is. And I don't tell my people in Nashua or tell people, take that to court or go fight with them. Because I know, look at me, you could be arrested, you could be attempted arrested. They did it at least 6 times. I mean, they just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And
So let's just stop there, because I think that was initially what drew me to your case. Is I remember you telling the story about these police officers just showing up at Laurie's house on, like, it was a game day.
Sunday.
It was a Sunday, and they were like, hey, we're here to give you a verbal warning to stop filing more right to know requests. And I don't care who you are or what you think about whether our government should be open and accountable to us. That's some mafia stuff right there. That's like, hey, I'm going to come break your legs,
and it was actually, you can't talk to assessing staff personnel outside of the office. You're not allowed to approach anyone in the hallway in City Hall and ask a question, or you'd be subject to arrest. And the other thing is they have cameras in the hallway that would monitor you. And after, when I tried to get more details, like, what does that mean? What do you mean follow somebody? Well, you can't, we don't want to see a video of you following an employee. And you shouldn't be like running up the stairs, because it would be looking like I chased an employee. I was so frightened because I like the exercise of stairs, and I do run them. And after that, I was like, I am trucking around, walking up these stairs. I'm not going to be on a video running up the stairs. But the whole thing was insane, and it was done to threaten and frighten me. And it was just so pushed back, so I couldn't get information. And then it rolled into, I tried to get those abatement applications stamped, and ultimately I was escorted out with no trespass warning, no nothing. It was fine. And 3 weeks later, I was in handcuffs in jail. Then that is, I'm now in a federal case, which is going to trial on April 15th with jury selection. It is very busy right now for me. And the judge fortunately preserved a claim where both city attorneys, the Corporation Counsel for the city, Steve Bolton, and the Deputy Corporation Counsel, Celia Leonard, can be put on trial for retaliation and the wrongful arrest and attempted arrests and harassment of what went on
And
over
that's your federal case, right?
That's my federal case.
So where is that being heard? In
Concord.
So that is where, so that's actually how I won my filming police officers case as well, is it was a claim of, I mean, I had 37 claims, but then as the wheels of injustice
They leave you like
go,
a couple.
Right? So you keep knocking them down because you're just taking the hits from all the sides with the people with the unlimited, resources
That's
to come
what happened
at
to
you.
me.
So I had said to my lawyers, I just really care about this thing, the First Amendment right to film police officers. And it was a retaliatory claim because they got me on disobeying an officer and something with government administration. But then when they stole my camera and refused to give me a receipt to say we confiscated your camera, I was like, well, then I'm not leaving the police station. I will sit here in protest. And he got so mad at me that he added wiretapping to the charge sheet before they kicked us out. And that wiretapping charge was the retaliatory action. And that is how. So I think you might actually have a shot with that.
I have a good case. But again, I'm going after two lawyers who actually, both lawyers were represented by Russ Hilliard of Upton Hatfield for 2.5 years. Friday, Brian Cullen breaks off Celia Leonard, and now she has her own representation after 2 years and 7 months.
That must mean they have two different versions of the facts, though.
2 weeks before the trial, we get a new lawyer dropped in, which is actually problematic,
Would you be seeking, we got our 3-minute warning, so we're going to have to wrap up, but maybe I will have Laurie back again because there's so much we could talk about.
It's fun. It's so fun to be with you.
Are you, do you want people to come to the courthouse?
I do.
Would that be helpful?
I do. So many times that, I go into court many times with my right to know cases, and Laura Calhoun, who's my 75-year-old friend, comes with me, and we're like the team. I don't advertise. I've never been looking for a lot of public support, but for my federal trial, I would like support for that.
And that is when again?
April 15th is jury selection, so we'll know the date.
That'll be interesting,
Is that open? Is that an open public process?
So I'm not sure. I think it is. It feels like it should be. It's usually in a courtroom.
Right.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but we've had mixed results with juries here in New Hampshire, so that'll be interesting. But I think for most Granite Staters, I do think on some fundamental level, we do understand that we want our government to be open, and that we understand that when they are taking all these actions, even though they want to paint you as a gadfly or this problem child, the reality is, but all of these things are happening because you are not actually responding to our constitutional rights under the New Hampshire Constitution for open, transparent, accountable government. So we're going to have to wrap it up, guys. But
thanks for having me. I loved being here.
Thank you for coming. And I feel like we should do a breakdown. Maybe I'll make a whole little series.
We could definitely. I love that.
I
love that. There's just so much information and so many interesting things going on. And it's really kind of a perilous time for records. I'm very concerned. I did the in-depth New Hampshire Sunshine Week interview panel on Zoom, and Damian Fisher was one who spoke out about he had never, as a reporter, seen it more hostile and difficult to get records. And he has a lawyer he works with. He doesn't understand how citizens can be successful at all. And I can tell you, it's brutal.
It is brutal. So if you care about open, transparent, accountable government, please follow Laurie's quest to open up Nashua, and of course I do what I can here in Manchester, and we both serve on Right to Know New Hampshire. It is a nonpartisan group of concerned citizens from across the state, from different political spectrums. We've got the media, we've got, just old ladies doing our stuff, and we would love it if you would join us. It meets every third Saturday of the month. It's a Zoom call, and you can just email me at carla@carlagarrick.com if you want to get on board with that. Thank you guys for joining me. We will be back here again next week.